It is draft night, everyone. Night 2 of the 2022 NFL Draft. Welcome to WKYC.com. I'm Dave DiNatale with the elevated.
It is great.
Nick Camino.
First time in my life I've ever been higher than you.
That's right.
This feels good. I'm on a stool, and it feels a lot. It's great to be above Dino here for once in my life.
Oh my goodness! What an interesting night for the Cleveland Browns. Friday night. With the second round of the draft, Nick, and we'll get to the players.
The second night, they didn't
They
do anything.
didn't do anything in the second. Yeah, they didn't do anything in the second round. We'll get to the players they picked and everything in a second. Let's start first with the turbulent evening for Baker Mayfield rumors. It looked like it at a couple points during the evening that there might be an agreement or close to an agreement between the Browns and the Carolina Panthers to send Mayfield down there. And right about as Carolina was, as we were thinking, well, maybe we're about done. About 11 o'clock, we heard that, well, we saw the Panthers trade back into the third round and get Matt Corral, the quarterback from Ole Miss. And then I think Yahoo's Charles Robinson was the first to say talks broke down, and a lot of it having to do with the $18 million that Baker Mayfield is owed this final year of his contract.
Yeah, so I mean, I think everybody thought that he was going to land with the Panthers. I mean, that's kind of where things seem to be pointing. But as the night wore on and as the rounds wore on, you got the sense, okay, is he going to be hanging around? That's kind of the sense I'm getting now throughout the weekend here. Now going into Saturday, is he just going to be on the Browns roster after, once the draft ends? And the big part of it is what you touched on, the money. I mean, he's owed $18 million. So there's probably a disagreement over how much money the Browns are willing to pay of that. Because if you're another team and you're going to take on Baker Mayfield's contract, you're not taking the whole thing, as you know.
That's it.
I mean, there's probably some disagreement there. And, Matt Corral he's a heck of a player. I know he got hurt in their bowl game, so he's coming off an injury, Matt Corral from Ole Miss. So that's an interesting pick. And, now this is going to be very, very interesting to see what's going to happen with Baker here, because if he's still on the roster after the draft, and let's say there's a suspension that comes down for Deshaun Watson,
what happens?
How do you keep this guy?
Right. I mean,
that would be very bizarre.
I mean, it doesn't appear that any of these fences can be mended based on things that Baker said in that podcast, and the Browns have obviously decided to move forward, but
they don't want to swallow the full $18 million.
But they don't have any leverage. I mean, the problem is they have zero leverage in all this.
True. The only thing they could have going for them maybe is if there was an injury or something, if something happened to a guy. But right now it seems like everybody's got their quarterbacks. Guys have signed quarterbacks already, or they're drafting quarterbacks in this draft. The Steelers have done both. Remember, they got Trubisky, and now they drafted Kenny Pickett. So it doesn't seem like there's a need for a lot of teams for a quarterback right now. So it kind of feels like the Browns are stuck, especially because of the money.
Right. So while all that's going on, the Browns finally made a pick in the third round. They had a second round pick, the 44th pick overall. And apparently the Texans continue to be on the Browns speed dial because
Nick Caserio, he's got Cleveland ties.
Right, exactly. So, the team that the Browns made the Deshaun Watson deal for and sent all those draft picks to Houston. Well, that wasn't enough. Let's send more draft picks to the Texans. They send pick number 44 in the second round to the Texans, pick up a third rounder, which they did use tonight, and a couple of fourth rounders, which they would presumably either use on Saturday or bunch them in for more things.
Think about it, 6 picks total in the third and fourth round, 3 in the third, which they used all 3.
Right.
And then on Saturday, it'll be 3 more. So it's interesting to see where they're at.
Yeah. Now, if you had told me the first position group that the Browns would spend a pick on,
I know.
Cornerback, Martin Emerson.
Seems like a position of strength right now for the Browns.
The one thing Tyler Carey and I were talking about it as we were working on our respective stories tonight. Well, Denzel Ward. No, first things first. One of the issues is they've had injuries at oftentimes.
Sure.
Denzel Ward, as good as he is, and
he's had some injuries.
He's had injuries. So has Greedy Williams, obviously. True. So I guess that's the thinking is you bring in Emerson as a guy that can back up both Denzel Ward and also Greg Newsome. Where does it leave Greedy Williams? I wonder in the big picture. That'll be interesting.
Another guy that's as you said has been injured a lot.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what though, any guy that's played in the SEC, I feel like I give them the benefit of the doubt. Now there were some draft grades that had Emerson going in the 5th round, so maybe this seems like a little bit of a reach for some people. But gosh, I mean, played in the SEC. He's a big guy, 6'2", 200 pounds for a corner. That seems pretty big. I think a lot of times you're getting 6 foot, 180, something like that. I mean, 6'2", 200 pounds. That's a nice size corner. Be interesting to see how he fits, though. Definitely a position of strength now for the Browns.
Now, the Browns, with their second third-round pick, they stay kind of in the South, not an SEC team, but they grab a young man from UAB, Alex Wright, and he's a big guy. I mean, he's a big guy.
I mean, when he got to UAB, they said he was 210 pounds.
Yes.
Now he's 270 pounds.
Yes.
So I heard the Browns say tonight they want to talk to their sports medicine team. I forget what they called it. It was a fancy name for it. Something that's way above my head. And they said that they're going to try to find out the most healthy weight for him to play at. Because he came in at 210. Now he's 270. Where do you want that body, when it comes down to it? But you could argue, and they could still add Clowney back, but another position of what I think a lot of people would feel strength for the Browns.
That edge rusher spot.
And again, you're adding a really nice piece, what appears to be on that D line. So you talked about the corners. Now the D line. Hopefully it's something you never have to worry about for a while now.
Right. So you get the edge rusher, which we had been told might be especially with the Clowney situation, that might be a target. Well, they get that right, and then with the 99th pick. They take a guy that if you've watched enough Big Ten football over the years, and this one has, and I have, the name David Bell just jumped out right at you. Wide receiver from Purdue, as good as they come, an All-American last year. It was interesting though to read scouting reports. Some people gave him a 5th or 6th round grade. Just thought about David Bell, who's an All-American, but
I think the knock on him was he's not a burner, right? 40 time,
but he catches the football.
Tremendous hands. Yeah, that's what the Browns need. They don't need a number 1 wideout. They need a guy who's
have that now.
Yeah, they have that. So could you have could he be your number 3, your number 4, your slot, whatever? It doesn't have to be a burner. I mean, you don't need that right now. You need a guy who can catch the football for you. You need a sure-handed guy, and I think with Bell when he was at Purdue. We saw that. I remember him against the Buckeyes a couple of times. Him and Rondale Moore, they were a nice little 1-2 punch together. That was 2 years ago now. But Bell's tremendous. He's a tremendous wideout. When they drafted him, you heard me over there. I was like, whoa, all right.
That kind of woke everybody up. Now all of a sudden, you look at your wide receiver room, and this is we'll wait and see what happens.
We're biased though in Big Ten country.
Yeah, we are, and I'll admit to that. I'll cop to that. But your wide receiver room, at least as it stands now, you've got Amari Cooper, you've got Donovan Peoples-Jones, you've got Schwartz.
Schwartz still here.
Yeah, he's still around, and now you have David Bell.
Yep.
And there's still talk, whether or not they can go back and get Jarvis Landry back here, or we've heard the name Will Fuller and players like that. They may still want to go get a veteran, but you feel a little bit better about the wide receiver room. With this pick tonight.
I think you feel better about the wide receiver room, the defensive backfield, and the D line.
Yeah.
And so, for as much flack as the Browns got for, obviously they didn't have a pick on Thursday, but it was kind of a boring night.
Yeah.
And then to go move out of the second round tonight, it was like, okay, one of these guys is going to pick. I feel like they finished on a high note going into the last day of the draft. So I think there's a lot to build on. And if you're a Browns fan, I mean, we're not going to sit here and give them a draft grade, but at the same time, there's something to be excited about, I think. Hopefully they added some talent that'll be here.
And you mentioned it's Saturday figures to be a busy day, and this is where, Saturday is always the day. You find guys that you can develop, that you draft and develop, and guys that can play on special teams.
That's right.
And think about like Demetric Felton as an example. This is where
nice pick, 7th round, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is where you find the guys, the 40 to 52 on your roster.
Important guys.
Yeah.
You're right. And I think another thing going into the last day, we might laugh at this, but go through the kickers in the AFC North right now. Boswell and Tucker and McPherson. There's some really strong kickers in the division. And so where you feel like at times, sometimes you have to kick, you got to kick the field goal. you need a guy who can do that on a good basis. Are you looking at a guy like Gabe Burkich from Oklahoma?
Why not?
Kicker. NDCL, Chardon, he's a local guy, grew up a season ticket holder for the Browns. Kind of a cool story.
Yeah. Would understand kicking in the conditions because he had to do it.
Idolize Phil Dawson. Man, that would be a cool pick. I don't know what other kickers they would look at, but and there's always the debate of, do you draft a kicker? You know what I mean? I don't know if you should do it like Tampa did that year in the second round.
Yeah.
But
or
the Browns have been,
Janikowski in the first round.
Yeah. And the Browns have they've been burned on it with Zane Gonzalez, who's actually still kicking now. But I think you got to be careful there. I think they're a little snake bitten by drafting kickers.
Agreed.
Austin Seibert.
Exactly.
Exactly.
We'll see. All right. Well, we'll look forward to your coverage.
Yes, all weekend
long as we wrap up the 2022 NFL Draft. Again, the Browns make 3 picks on Friday. They get the wide receiver, David Bell, the final of their 3 third-round picks. They also get Alex Wright, the edge rusher from UAB, and out of Mississippi State, cornerback Martin Emerson.
This is what it feels like to sit high above. I like it.
Yeah, that's right. I like that. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
We didn't even get into your vacation. We still
we didn't get to. Yeah, we didn't. We still haven't talked about Italy yet. All right, that'll do it for us. We got plenty more coverage right now at WKYC.com on all of the Browns picks and everything that transpired.
Tyler Carey's on fire right now.
Tyler Carey's on fire tonight, so make sure you catch that out. For Nick Camino and for Tyler Carey, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks for watching right here on WKYC.com.